This is the kind of word nerdery that I love. The correct line has that kind of ring of rightness to it. It's like it's always been there. And then when you get to go back and you look at drafts and you think about all the other ways that this could have been said, it's really cool to hear that.
Celeste, I'm so happy to be talking to you today.
I'm so thrilled to be talking to you, Ebony. Thank you.
I'm such a fan of your writing, and you have a new book.
I do. It's called Our Missing Hearts. It's my third novel, and it's the story of a 12-year-old boy named Bird, and he grows up in a time of really pervasive fear. And Bird's mother has left the family some years before, but at the beginning of the book, he gets a mysterious letter from her, and he's kind of drawn into a quest to find her.
Celeste, I love the book so much. It's so beautiful, it's so evocative, and it's just quietly unsettling. Can you read the first few sentences of the book,
Sure.
if you don't mind?
I'll read the opening paragraph if that's okay. It says, the letter arrives on a Friday. Slit and resealed with a sticker, of course, as all their letters are. Inspected for your safety. Packed. It had caused confusion at the post office, the clerk unfolding the paper inside, studying it, passing it up to his supervisor, then the boss. But eventually it had been deemed harmless and sent on its way. No return address, only a New York postmark 6 days old. On the outside, his name, Bird, and because of this, he knows it is from his mother.
Can you talk about your choice to have the letter slit as opposed to opened or torn apart?
Yeah, so there's all these, when I teach writing, one of the things that I do is I try and encourage the students to think, well, what other words could you use? And why is this one better? Or if the other one's better, why? Why, can you articulate it? So one of the reasons that I liked slit is that it starts with that S sound. It's a little quiet. It matches the sound of, if you imagine a letter opener going into the envelope. I imagine this isn't a letter that's been torn open. This is a letter that's been opened by the government. And so they're trying to do it sort of unobtrusively, and that slit matches the sound of that, right? They're opening it with the smallest possible incision. It ends with that t. There's a little poke at the end of the word, which I like. And you've got a couple of S sounds in that sentence. You've got slit, and then you've got resealed, and you've got sticker. So there's this sense, in a way, we associate that with being sort of quiet or sly, in a way. And the fact that this is a government agency that's opening this letter before it reaches its recipient, it kind of gives you that emotional feeling, even without us realizing it, that this is something slightly underhanded. If I'm really stuck on a passage, a lot of times the act of handwriting will free me up. And then it is interesting because in those few instances, I can go back and I can see where I've crossed out a word, or I've put brackets around it, meaning I'm not sure about this word, and I've replaced it with another word, or where I've moved things around. There's very few passages that I can think of where I've got that kind of record. One of them is there's a section where Bird's at a high window and he's watching his father walk away, and tinkering with the imagery there, figuring out what I was going to compare it to. That was a place that I worked out by hand. He's watched his father cross this courtyard before on snow days, when Bird's school closed but his father's work did not. He used to stand by the window, waiting until his father emerged far below, watching him head down the path and out of sight. In the winter, the small dots of footprints that appeared in his father's wake were like magic. Up close, Bird knew, they were jagged holes crushed into the ice. But from where he stood, 10 stories up, pinned against and behind glass, they were dainty and precise, beautiful, purposeful.
What do you feel you were able to find by hand that would have been harder to find typing?
So because I write in ink, in a way, I have to commit to that phrase.
Sure.
And sometimes that helps because when I come back, I can follow my train of thought in a way.
Yeah.
I can start off saying, oh, his footprints look like ants. I'm like, well, they might look like ants, but that's not suggesting what I want in this sort of father-son moment of tenderness. Like, ants are not an emotional thing for most of us. So I'm like, okay, well, they look like lines of stitching on a quilt. Okay, they might look like that. And I kind of like the associations that come with that idea of hominess and warmth and being domestic. But maybe that's not the image to start off with, because his father is not the one who would be doing sewing, probably. So then I start thinking, okay, they look like stones. As, stones marked out. I'm like, okay, there's something there. There's a lot of fairy tales in this story. And in the original version of Hansel and Gretel drop stones to mark their path. Thin stitching on a snow-white quilt, a trail of stones placed to mark the path home or to show someone the way. How comforting to know that he could go downstairs, follow the marks his father's feet have made, all the way to wherever he's gone.
Can you talk a little bit about the title, Our Missing Hearts?
I have real trouble with titles. So when I gave this to my agent to read, it didn't have a title. I think the document just literally had title goes here in the middle of the page. And she said, you need to have an actual title. What I ended up doing was going through the book and just writing down every phrase that sounded like it could be a title. I had a whole list of phrases, maybe 3 pages. And the one that stood out was Our Missing Hearts. And I was really resistant to that because it's the title of a book within the book. And it's a title of a poem in that book within the book. There was this level of meta-ness to it that I worried would feel a little twee or would feel very obvious. Like, of course, that's going to be the title of the book. The more I thought about it, the more I really liked it as a title for the whole novel itself. Partly because if we go word by word, there's our. And that suggests the collective, that this is not a you problem, right? This is not a problem just for particular people. That is a collective problem, and that there is a we. And that for me is one of the themes of the book, that something that happens to somebody else isn't just their problem. It's also your problem if it affects the society that we're in. So I liked that idea that it was our missing hearts, not my missing hearts, not his missing heart or her missing hearts. And then if you go to missing, I liked the idea that it wasn't totally lost because in a sense that suggests that they might not be found. They're not destroyed or damaged. Missing suggests that you're still looking for it, but it also suggests that you feel its absence. There's the sense that you not only don't have it, but you want to get it back. You're actively seeking it. And then finally, when we get to hearts, there's that sense of first the very literal, the hearts. And if you read the book, you'll see that there's sort of a literal interpretation of this phrase. The hearts becomes a stand-in for the children who have been taken away as a means of political leverage. So there's this sort of metaphorical child is like a heart. But that idea also of our hearts being missing, to me, suggested a lack of empathy. And that was one of the other big themes of the book. The more I thought about it, the more I sort of realized, oh, this actually does speak to the whole book. The fact that it's also the title of a poem in a book, there's a nice sort of circularity to that brings it into a full round.
It feels like a nice symmetry. It doesn't feel twee at all.
Okay, good. For me, when I'm writing, I often know when I've hit the right line because there's almost a mental click that happens where I go, oh, this makes sense both on a sonic level, it makes sense on a literal level, of course, and then it makes sense on an emotional level. It makes you feel a certain way. That's usually how I know I've hit the right phrasing. In good weather, people often cross this lawn. I can't read my own handwriting. Help you find your way back home or to show someone something that I cannot read. I think it's supposed to be way, but it looks like yay.